Hello, welcome to another episode of the Intel with Greg Cosell. I'm Jeff Mosher with Adam Kaplan from Inside the Birds. And of course, we've got with us Greg Cosell to break down all the tape, as he's been doing for us, of NFL draft prospects. And in this episode, we are going to have Greg break down the tape of the safety class. A lot of interesting names, a lot of athleticism at this position, as there always is, Greg. And we're going to start with a guy. I know a lot of Eagles fans. The Eagles fans are definitely on this year's batch of safeties. They think the Eagles might be ripe to take one, but you always have to start with a Georgia guy when you're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. So let us discuss Malaki Starks and his tape.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that was multidimensional in the way in which he was deployed in Georgia's defense. He's got really good size. He's 6'1", he's 197. Didn't run great, but safeties were a little different than corners. His actual athletic testing wasn't great, by the way.
Exactly.
So what's that, Adam?
No, exactly. That's the knock on him, despite how, you'll break down his tape for us, but he's got a very strong reputation in scouting circles. But then you get the athletic numbers, you go, wow. So as I throw it back to you, Greg, do the athletic numbers belie it? Is it what does the tape show? Yeah, he's not a great athlete. Like, what kind of athleticism do you see off tape?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the athleticism does show up on tape. I think he's got good play speed. I think he's got range. He can play downhill. I think there's some sideline to sideline to him. He played a lot of slot in as well. I'm not sure that he would do that in the NFL. He did a ton of that at Georgia. But I would say that to me, he projects more as a back-end safety where I believe his athletic and physical traits can best be maximized. That's the way I saw him. I think there'll be some disagreement on that. And I think, as I've said many times, reasonable people can disagree. The more I watched Starks, the more I thought of a Jesse Bates style of player, who plays on the back end with smooth, fluid movement, transition traits to be a factor in the passing game. I think he showed enough physicality and aggression to run the alley as a run defender and make tackles. But that's the way I saw him. I don't think he's going to play in the slot in the NFL. But, you never know. Teams see him differently, and then you get into schemes. But that's the way I saw Malaki Starks.
His former Georgia teammate, Javon Bullard, wound up doing that with the Packers, playing safety and nickel.
Right.
Times. Yeah.
Mickey Smith, who's with the Bucks, he was at Georgia too, and he's been he played in the slot quite a bit for the Bucks. I didn't quite see him as a slot player either, but that's where he played a lot of. So, maybe I'll be wrong. But I saw Starks more as kind of as I said, a back end Jesse Bates kind of player.
I feel like, guys, and with the safety position, that what we're seeing over the last few years, especially, is that teams are valuing that positional versatility as we get more positionless on defense in the NFL than elite athletic testing. And I think Kyle Hamilton stands out. He's a guy who did not blow it up at the combine, and people were concerned when he ran the slow 40. The Ravens didn't care. They drafted him in the first round. He's been an excellent player for them, and he's been a movable chess piece in their defense at times for them.
Correct.
Notre Dame.
All right, Greg, the next guy is got unbelievable ball production. That's Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. What's your tape tell you on him?
Yeah, Xavier Watts, he's does have unbelievable ball production. It's funny. We kind of joke about this in our matchup room because a lot of people say things like, well, he's always around the ball, okay? Which is just one of those things to say. And then you watch the tape and we joke and we go, well, where else would you expect him to be? I mean, I don't know what that means. And I'm being honest, if you're a safety and the quarterback, let's say, overthrows the receiver and hits you between the numbers, where else are you supposed to be? If you're a corner and you're covering a guy and the quarterback makes a bad throw and throws it behind the receiver and you intercept it, where else are you supposed to be? I mean, I just think it's funny when I hear that. We heard that with Emmanuel Forbes. How did that work out for him? When he came out of Ole Miss and he had all these picks and everybody said, oh man, he's always around the ball. Yeah. Well, soon he's going to be around somewhere else because he won't be in the league. But, that doesn't really mean anything to me, But anyway, which, by the way, is not to say Watts isn't a good prospect. I was just, saying, I think Watts is scheme diverse. I think he can play on the back end as both a post safety and in two high structures. I think he can play at the second level and in the slot and match up man to man on both tight ends and wide receivers. I think he gives NFLD coordinators a lot to work with. You guys know that when I watch a player, I don't sit after I finish watching him for 20 minutes with my hands on my head thinking of who is this guy like. Either someone pops into my head or they don't. In some ways, he kind of reminded me of Xavier McKinney coming out of Alabama, because McKinney played safety and he played in the slot at Alabama when he was, there. And we've seen him, become a really good pro. I think Watts, to me, just based on tape study, has some similar traits.
Greg, you've always said that, and it's like this for quarterbacks. You have to grade every turnover. So with Watts,
yeah.
So okay, let's you went into it a little bit about that term that's obviously overused about the ball finds him or he finds the ball, but do you see a knack for him to go hit, to track the ball well? Anything that you see off tape that shows he actually is good at doing that and it's not just luck?
Well, I think the key thing, and you don't always see this with DBs, is he catches the ball. And that might sound silly, but how many times have we seen DBs where they have a chance for interceptions and they just don't catch the ball?
By the way, Quinyon Mitchell was not good at it, Toledo. Just believe it or not, he did not have good hands. This is from scouting.
Right.
So he did it either until the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
right.
So and again, all kidding aside, Adam, that's a big deal. He catches the ball when the ball's thrown to him and he has an opportunity to catch it, he catches it. And a lot of DBs don't catch the ball. You see that a lot. You see that even at the NFL level with guys who are nice players, but they just don't catch the ball. So Watts catches the ball when he has an opportunity to do so. And that's why he has great ball production, because when he has an opportunity to make an interception, he doesn't drop it. He catches the ball.
Right. This is another guy, guys, whose college production, the interception percentage, the tackle percent, all of that outweighs the athletic testing. I believe is raw.
Sure.
Well, I don't think he's like the fastest safety there. He didn't blow it up. I'm not sure if he ran a 40, but
I don't think
he did not. Yeah, he did not.
Yeah, he did not. He did not blow anything up. This is not an athletic testing type of guy. It's more of an elite producer at the college level.
And again, since we're in the cliche mode right now,
sure.
This is a guy that you come away feeling like this guy's a good football player.
He's a two-time All-American and a Nagurski winner. So
his run defense stood out too. Putting aside the picks, he had a quick trigger. He had downhill aggression. He was a physical tackler. There was definitely a playmaking feel to his game. This guy, was a very aggressive player. He played fast. He played with physicality. He played with competitiveness. Those guys immediately jump out when you watch tape. The guys that all of a sudden you go, on every play, you go, oh, yeah, there's that guy again. Even if he doesn't make the play, they just stand out in the way they play. Another guy like that, and he may not be the next guy on your list, but another guy who's like that is Lathan Ransom. He just shows up. He's a guy that, plays in the box. He has many, many snaps in the box and then snaps on the back end, and he just triggers and he goes, and you see him. Sometimes he's a little reckless, undisciplined, but you just notice him on plays. He just goes.
And is he would you call Lathan Ransom a box safety in the old school traditional NFL way, or can he play some too high? Can he play the post?
I probably would say that he's not a post safety, but now you get into the whole quarters thing.
Right.
Where you have a run defense responsibility as well as a pass defense responsibility. And my sense is he can do that. So I think, given that more and more teams are playing quarters as a sort of foundational starting point, I don't think you'd play Ransom. Now, again, you're not going to do the same thing every play. So could there be times where you line him up as a post safety, depending on your defensive call in a given down and distance situation, depending on what you anticipate the offense doing? Yes, that could happen, but he's not a post safety. No.
All right. Let us talk about one of the few safeties who absolutely produced at a high level and also tests really well athletically. Coming out of South Carolina, that is Nick Emmanwori. I hope I pronounced that.
Emmanwori, yeah.
Emmanwori, yep.
He's probably you know, as you guys know, I don't make lists, but he'd be my number one safety prospect in this draft class. This guy, first of all, I remember watching South Carolina a few years ago in 2022, because they always have defensive prospects, when Emmanwori was a true freshman. And I'm like, who is this guy? And obviously I wasn't taking notes at the time, but, you know, this guy just showed up. And so I watched him last summer from 2023 and obviously really dealt in detail with him this year. And I was obviously at the combine and saw him at 6'3" and an eighth run of 4.3840, which at 220 pounds, which is absurd. And his vertical jump was 43. And his broad jump was 11.6.
That's insanity. I don't know who tested best of every position at the combine. That's got to be right up there.
The guy was an athletic freak at the combine.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's a really high level prospect. I mean, and I think, you know, if, you know, since this is all part of Inside the Birds, and, you know, I don't know if he'll be there when they draft, but to me, he's your classic a quarter safety. He can play in a big nickel package. He could line in the box as a linebacker in dime packages. The point being, he's a multi-dimensional player with outstanding athletic and physical traits. He rarely missed tackles. I mean, he had 57 solo tackles. That is a lot of solo tackles for a safety. You know, he knows how to play underneath coverage in the pass game and zone, where I thought he showed a pretty refined feel for route concepts and combinations. He's got ball skills and hands. I mean, to me, he's the best safety prospect in the draft class.
Wow.
Yeah. Of all the safeties, I think he was number 2 as far as athletic testing behind Caleb Ransom, but his production in college far outshines Caleb Ransom. So,
in fact, yeah, he had 6 picks and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he's amazing. Watts, ton of production. South Carolina kid who we just mentioned is got the better athlete, and his measurables are ridiculous. Next up,
well, you know, Adam, you know why he had 6 picks?
Go ahead.
He's always around the ball.
He's always around the ball.
That's a new thing. Now we got Greg hooked. He's not going to stop on this. Everybody's got their tick, their nervous tick. Lathan Ransom, Greg, out of Ohio State. Let's go back.
Yeah, and I mentioned him a moment ago. Yeah, he's a tempo setter type guy.
Okay.
You know, he just triggers downhill. I mean, you know, he's just one of those. He's a box player, and like I said, maybe a quarters player.
Right.
I'd love to know how the Eagles feel. I'd love to know how the Eagles feel about him, because he's not going to be a first round pick. You know, and you know, he could be. To me, I think he kind of fits what they do, but you have to like the player. And I don't know how they feel about him, but I think the way in which he plays kind of fits what they do.
Yeah, like they have that version with Sidney Brown. I'm not saying they're apples to apples.
Better to me, he's a better prospect than Sidney Brown was coming out of Illinois, but that's my opinion.
Right, and Jeff, on the Eagles, since we brought them up, they need a post safety with Gardner Johnson traded.
He's not that guy,
right? And the kid Watts is clearly, and the kid from South Carolina, I guess Greg could line up pretty much any way you want to use him.
And I think Watts could do it to a certain extent as well.
Yeah,
but
Well, let's stay in the Big Ten, Greg. And here's a guy who I'm imagining you had to go back to the year before because he was hurt for most of last year. Kevin Winston out of Penn State.
Yeah, Kevin Winston. Thankfully I watched him last summer, so I didn't have to go back and do him again, because he only played one game and about a quarter of another game, as you well know, Jeff, being Mr. Penn State as you are.
And I like this kid. I thought he had a great year 2 years ago.
He's a big kid too. He's 6'1.5", 215, really long arms, great wingspan. I thought his 2023 tape showed a higher level safety prospect, great position versatility. He could play on the back end. He could be a post safety. He could play in 2 shell structures. He could play in the box. He could play in those overhang alignments just outside the box. He could match up man to man on tight ends. He matched up at times on wide receivers in 2023. I thought he was a rangy mover, great length, play speed. I thought I was anxious to see his 2024 tape, and there wasn't really any 2024 tape. So you're dealing with a guy that's long and athletic. He has the physical traits to project as a multi-dimensional safety. I didn't think he had meaningful limitations to his game. So I really liked him, and I was kind of sorry he didn't play this year, but he still could be a high draft choice. when I say high, he's not going to be top 10, but he could go. And you guys probably study this a little more than I do, but I could easily see him going in the top 50.
Yeah, he could be one of those prospects who falls because of the injury, but you get a steal in the second, or you're getting like a top 35 type talent, maybe in the second round, maybe early third, who knows?
And if he had played this year and had a great year, he would have been in the conversation for the best safety prospect in the class.
Wow. And he's coming back, by the way, from an ACL injury. So that's, clubs have to be comfortable with him to go in the first 2 rounds. Greg, next guy, Andrew Mukaba from Texas. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I love this guy's tape. Loved it. And don't forget, people might remember that he was started as a true freshman at Clemson and was really, really good, and then transferred for his last year to Texas. The only issue with him, in my view, is he's 5'11", 186. And you don't see a lot of safeties at 186. But, I mean, this guy is twitchy. He's got sudden athleticism. He's decisive with his reactions. He's really smooth. He can change direction, but he's got a really lean frame, and that's going to be a conversation in draft meetings. And he plays a really physical game. I mean, this guy is, he wants to come down and hit you. But, again, he's 186. He's small, and he looks small. To me, he can certainly play cover 4 quarters. I think those teams will see him as a viable and valuable safety prospect because he can be effective on the back end in the pass game. He fits, in quarters. The way they teach their safeties to play the run is they have a concept called flow, stack, track. Okay, that's how you play the run, and he can do that. He's very physical as an alley defender in the run game. It's just that he's not big. So a lot of times, he throws his body because he's just not big enough necessarily to truly wrap up. And that, so he just lacks the desired weight, and his arms are pretty short too. But he's a really good football player. It's just now you get into that discussion, which is going to be different for the teams in their draft meetings.
All right. Let's go to Oklahoma, where Billy Bowman Jr. is eligible for the draft. Greg, do you like Billy Bowman Jr.'s tape?
I do like Billy Bowman.
I had a feeling you might.
Yeah, I do like his tape. I mean, you're dealing with a multi-dimensional, versatile safety prospect. I thought that, he could move really well. There was kind of a suddenness to his movement as well. He attacked downhill from the back end. He played fast. Another guy that when you watched him, you kind of went, wow, that guy, he's playing fast. Now he's only 5'10", 192, ran really well. Athletic testing was good, not special. I thought that he ate up ground in a hurry. I think his position versatility was the strength of his game. I mean, he played on the back end, both as a split safety and as a single high. He dropped down in the box. He matched up man-to-man at times on slot wide receivers. The kind of player I saw him at, and again, I want people to understand this is stylistically. I'm not saying this is not saying 2 and 2 is 4. So I hope people can appreciate what I'm saying. But I think stylistically, 2 players came to my mind when I was watching Bowman, Tyrann Mathieu and Budda Baker. I think he's stylistically like that because he's shorter, but there's an aggressiveness and competitiveness to him, and he can do the back end like both guys could. He can play in the slot like both guys can at times, and just the way he played made me think of those guys.
Ran a 4.42, by the way, which at
for safety,
really good.
Yeah, that's good for a safety, man. That's
10 pounds heavier than the safety that we just talked about before,
right?
Lighter framed and who ran a 4.45. So
and he's built more stockily because he's a touch shorter. So the look, Mukaba is a lean-looking guy. Like Mukaba looks. Just for Eagles fans, Mukaba looks closer to a Devonta Smith type build, whereas Bowman looks strong and firm.
Got it.
Anyone left, Jeff?
Well, we were going to ask him about Mickens from I think A&M, right?
No, he's Clemson.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Clemson.
Yeah, Mickens is another guy that a lot of these safeties I liked. I mean, again, I don't know how teams see them, these safeties tend to be team and scheme specific. But I like the way he played as well. I mean, he had a downhill mentality. He tackled in the run game. He had a lot of experience playing man coverage on wide receivers out of the slot. Another guy that I thought would play well in quarters as a foundational coverage. I think because of his football IQ, I thought he was a great mental processor, that he could play different roles in different schemes. He's not a special athlete. Like, that's the one thing that, you come away with, he's not a guy you go, wow, that guy's just sudden and twitchy and special. I mean, he doesn't have the suddenness and twitch you would ideally like to see, but he played with really excellent control and awareness and recognition. And I thought that, again, to be cliched but true in this case, I thought he just was a really good football player. But because he's not a special athlete, you don't come away with any wow factor to his game. But to me, this guy's going to play in the league.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Emmanwori, who we talked about, and then maybe one or two other guys, it seems like the big cluster of this year's safety group is a cluster of they're reliable, they're versatile, they can do good things. They didn't test extraordinarily well. We've seen some safety classes in the past where everybody's blowing it up at the combine, but this would not be that type of class.
Right. But, the game has changed a bit in the NFL, and I think that's the important point to make. You're seeing a ton more too high structures.
Right.
The post safety and the Earl Thomas mold is not really out there now. There's very few guys like that. Again, every team would want that guy if that guy was available, but there's not a lot of guys like that. So what you're seeing is teams play guys at post safety in the NFL now. I'm not talking about college football, that you wouldn't necessarily associate as having post safety traits, but that's what they have. So they're still going to play coverages that require a post safety. Someone's got to play post safety.
Hey, Greg, since you did watch Kevin Winston and went back, did you happen to see his backfield teammate Jaylen Reed at all?
Yeah, I did, and I like Jaylen Reed. I'm glad you mentioned him. Jaylen Reed's another multi-dimensional player. Again, the thing you're going to come away with is he's not a special athlete, but he ran better, I think, than people thought, given that his body type, 5'11", 5'8", 211, ran a 4.49. I like Jaylen Reed. I think he's versatile. He played on all three levels of the defense. He's another guy with a quick trigger. There's an urgency and aggression to the way in which he played. As Jeff, he played 4 seasons at Penn State, a 2-year starter. Again, another guy you're not going to come away. He's not exactly the same as Mickens, but another guy you're not going to come away going, wow, what an athlete. But right. I think that he's a good football player. I think he sees it well.
Player. Yeah.
Again, you're not going to view him as a post safety, but a lot of these safeties can do a lot of different things, and it comes back to what I said before. It's team and scheme.
Yeah, I think because he was when Winston was healthy, they played Reed in what they call the lion role, which is almost like a big nickel or a hybrid slot kind of guy, a bigger slot defender, and then he wound up playing a lot of safety when Winston got hurt. But yet he would still go and then move inside. So I do feel like he could fit a team that likes to play like the Dan Quinn big nickel package or the 3 safety.
Well, he certainly could do that. Yeah. And he Penn State deployed him as a robber in some coverages. That he played them as the middle hole defender in cover 2. I mean, he was asked to do a lot of things in Tom Allen's defense, and Allen's gone now. He's at Clemson. But I don't think they would have asked him to do all those things if they didn't think he could do them.
Agreed. All right, great stuff. Good stuff on the safety class. And that really that closes the book. I believe we've done every position group on defense with Greg, and we will start to turn the page to the offensive players as we continue this series on the Intel with Greg Cosell. So for Greg Cosell and Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. We thank you once again for watching the Intel with Greg Cosell.